The scene opens as we look out upon the mountain ranges of the Pennines. For the most part, a barren and lifeless land, but for the shrubbery and the short grass and the occasional fell pony. It is a warm night tonight with some illumination from the moon above, lighting up the ravine that Cormac, Elned, and Thomas have traveled to. The outskirt woods are long gone. The two ridges look down on you in the steep valley. The valley the soldiers call Mikhailfjall, a place none of them have been, but all seem to recognize by its unique landscape. The land where you've encamped is mostly gravel and hard dirt with very little vegetation, and a weak stream going further down the valley eastward. To the west, where you came from, is a narrow pass between the steep ridges in the north and south sides that stretch out to form the valley. The group of you are all just emerging from your tents and tarps from the evening, and have learned from this young soldier, Corporal Kyle Jenkins, that one of the men found a cave nearby. Jenkins speaks up to you as he is still recovering from his excitement. It's not far up the hill, far from the camp, sir, up by the ridge. Maybe less than half a mile. The men think it might have been an old Roman mine. What are your orders?
If it is indeed that old, the stability may be a concern.
Stable or no, if it's holding a force of any size, we are poorly armed, poorly armored, and light on forces.
The men did not venture far, but there was no activity they reported.
Did they venture there during the day?
He nods.
Did anyone notice signs of tracks, comings or goings, of any kind?
No.
Then I would advocate for bringing this information back and letting those who defend this particular domain address it as they see fit.
Are you joking? We're not even going to have a look at it.
The risk is too great. If it's nothing, then we'll have wasted nothing in choosing not to address it. If it's something, and we choose to address it, then we put ourselves and these men at risk. It seems folly.
Arson balls. If you're not going to go have a look, then I will.
Why don't we defer to the person amongst us who has the most successful military campaigns under her belt?
If there is anything there, it is a large risk. If anything, it should be a scouting party, and, well, to be completely honest, we already had one of those.
Thomas will turn towards, was it Kevin?
Jenkins, who's listening intently.
Choose 3 reliable men. Have them scout the cave entrance. Do not enter. Listen. While they are away, we will continue pulling camp. They are to return within the hour. And if they do not, well,
He nods a couple times. And then he turns, looking at each of you once briefly before turning to go back towards the men who are still pulling camp. You can see him in the distance speaking to some men and pointing up the ridge. After a few minutes, it seems like a group of 3 men are going up in that direction.
I sincerely hope the lot of them are proficient in what they're attempting.
hopefully they're attempting to listen at the mouth of the cave and then return.
We came out here for a bloody reason.
We came out here to scout for enemy forces.
And if they're not in that cave, where else would they be?
Further into the Pennines than I'm willing to take this motley crew.
Or are they?
Or not at all.
As I've said before, even if there's nothing there, there is a risk of the mine potentially collapsing.
They didn't say it was a mine, they said it was a cave.
True. It's more reflecting on if it is a more natural occurring one or not.
Either way, it is a potential place for our kind to hide. Out of the sunlight. Secluded. Defensible. It's worth a look, but I don't know if it's worth taking the risk ourselves.
What are we good for then? Just wide-eyed puppies wandering the wilderness.
How hungry are you, Cormac?
I don't see what it has to do with anything.
If a force set up shop there, and they've supplied themselves, well, they'll definitely have the upper hand. A defensive position, good supplies, a steady supply of blood, possibly fresh.
It's a cave, you daft bastard, not some bloody fortress. Whatever they have with them, they'd have had to drag through the same wilderness we've been traveling. Use your head.
I am. That's why I've asked 3 young men who are less a threat than 3 Canaanites to go have a look.
Less a threat, more food.
Answers are still answers.
Cormac looks rather put out by this, as if he can't believe the cowardice he's seeing now. And he turns away and starts pacing with his arms crossed.
Leading men sometimes means making hard choices.
I think I bloody well know that better than you.
I think we've both had our fair share of hard choices.
What's been your hard choices? Whether you eat the fish or the lobster?
Ordering a boy no older than I was to climb the crow's mast, to look out during a squall, knowing full well it meant him dying in the process. You sacrifice 1 man to save a ship.
We embraced 20 bloody fresh young fools and sent them into a slaughter.
Precisely.
You promised them they'd come back alive.
I did.
Now, fighting amongst ourselves is not the best for morale.
Fuck all with morale.
Out of curiosity, how long have they been gone?
Not long. A few minutes.
Thomas is going to go pacing off in the same direction.
To follow the men.
Yep.
Don't go off that way, my dear. You might chip a nail.
I think we'll do more than chip a nail on that attitude of yours.
Want to make something of it? And I want to roll a self-control check.
I'll give you difficulty 5. So far, your arguments have gone mostly unheard from any of the men who are a little bit a ways away.
Uh-oh.
Cormac, you can feel the beast coming up, and you know that unless something happens, you're gonna go after Long Tom in the next few seconds.
And yes, the effects are immediately visible. His face is contorted in rage, looking almost completely inhuman.
This is visible to you as well, Element. You can almost see the...
Question. Do the tents that are owned by the men have any, sharper wooden appendages that are usually hammered into the ground?
Oh, you mean like stakes?
Yes.
Yes, there are.
Okay. Because they're currently packing up camp, she's gonna try to stealthily gain some of them.
Sure.
Just in case.
They're all pretty distracted, and seeing someone pick up some stakes, even if they did see you, isn't that distracting. So seeing you even just move through camp isn't that alarming. So no
Alright.
roll required.
And she's going to return there afterwards. In the meantime...
So you step away right as Cormac is moving towards Thomas, perhaps even without realizing it.
Completely out of character, I'm waiting to see what Thomas will do. I know what I'm expecting him to do.
Thomas, out of the corner of your eye, you can see that Cormac is approaching you with some assertion and some aggression, and his face is very visibly distorted.
Get hold of yourself, man. This is neither the time nor the place for petty squabbles to get the better of us.
Alright, well I didn't botch it, so do I get another try?
Yes. I'll let you roll again at difficulty 6.
He is trying to fight it, but somehow the Bruja nature always wins. It wins.
Another failure. You're going in for a punch. You're going to try and punch Thomas out.
Thomas is going to parry.
You had your sword in your hand?
Can you not parry with your bare hands?
I mean, you can block.
Semantics, technically the same thing.
So I'll take some brawling rules from both of you. Dex brawls.
Difficulty for a punch is +1?
Nope,
Or is it
it's
standard?
standard. Standard for
Okay.
both of you. Oof.
Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time with that.
Alright.
So yeah, basically what's going to go down is that Cormac is going to backhand him with the full force of his potence.
So roll some strength plus your 1 extra success.
It's almost like a man hitting a cur, a dog who's misbehaving.
This has now caught the attention of the men, who some of them are stopping to watch and kind of pointing and... So, strength for damage and stamina for soak.
Ah, I messed it up. Whoops. He hit hard.
Are you spending
again-
blood for potence, or is that in the roll?
No, it's in the roll.
Okay. So yeah, Tom, you feel Cormac comes up and backhands you with the strength that would have knocked over any other man, but only because of your nature are you able to withstand it. And it's just as impressive how strong it was as how impressive you were able to withstand it.
Backhanding Tom is rather a lot like backhanding a post or solid granite,
You're like a marble statue.
basically.
Which he did not expect, but he's not exactly in his right mind. Is it another self-control check?
Another self-control check.
Difficulty 7 now?
Yes.
Oh,
Failed
Lord.
twice in a row.
This is getting hard. Can I spend willpower?
You may.
Alright, I will spend one for that. Good thing I did, because that would have been a botch.
Yes. So you're still feeling the fury of your Bruja blood boiling up, and you're going in for another hit, unless you feel like there's something else more aggressive you could do than that.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna dread gaze him.
Alright, roll it out.
Now I just have to remember the dice pool. Hang on.
I can get that up in a second.
Goddamn PDFs are too slow. There we go. Charisma plus intimidation.
And Elenid, by now you've returned with your stakes, and you see that it's turning into a brawl between the two of them.
He's like so not scared. Cormac's just a cute little puppy dog.
Yeah, Thomas, you can tell that Cormac is very angry right now, and you see his blood coming to the forefront in his gaze at you, although you don't feel the effects as intended.
So what would my diff be for that roll there, Cormac?
Wits plus courage would be 7.
Alright, that causes you to pause. You have to take a step back as you get a similar gaze of ferocity from Tom. At this point, a lot of the men are just kind of mumbling to each other and like pointing, like, "Oh, did you see that? He took a hit."
Good news, I finally found the page.
Alright, you have yet to botch your self-control roll, but this has been getting increasingly frustrating and maddening to you, Cormac. This didn't snuff out, and Thomas's refusal to stand down or let it go, that's only heightened your anger.
Yeah, he definitely feels cowed by the dread gaze, but his beast is the one winning the day right now.
Self-control difficulty 8.
Oh god, I'll spend another willpower.
Okay.
Things are getting way out of control.
Now, Linda, this is in full view of you now. You can see the two of them are quickly just losing context, losing perspective here.
2 successes. I'm gaining control.
After having a moment to pause from the dread gaze of Thomas, it gives you enough time to quiet your beast, to gain some composure enough to actually think again before you act. And you become acutely aware of how many eyes are on you now.
He looks around at all these eyes. Rage still boiling in him, but his better nature is starting to win out. He doesn't allow himself to look embarrassed, even though he feels it. And he gives Thomas, quote-unquote, a long, angry glance that is definitely touched by an undertone of fear. Presence is working on him.
Thomas glowers.
And he turns and runs into the wilderness at celerity speeds.
Did you see how fast he ran? You hear some voices.
Yes, and I realize that men were watching.
Didn't know he could run that fast. Whoa.
Alaned's going to rush over to Thomas's side.
He obviously looks very nonplussed.
Apparently, my little trip for, emergency supplies took longer than expected.
It's fine. I'm going to check on those men we sent up to that ridge.
Do you want me to follow Cormac, make sure he doesn't kill himself? Would you rather I stay with the men so they have a leader?
I'd rather someone stay here to direct them. Cormac's a big boy. He can take care of himself. I hope.
Very well, and she hands him the wooden sticks, just in case he comes back.
Thomas waves it off. I don't expect it will come to that.
If you say so.
All right. And Thomas, you continue up the ledge?
Yep. It's half a mile. It's about 10-15 minute walk, give or take.
Yeah, I would say like 10 minutes, yeah. So you begin in that way, and Alaned, you can kind of hear some of the voices of the men looking off, surprised and maybe a bit shaken by the sight of everything, the fight and Cormac running, and it's definitely put a pause to the last of the supplies being put together. What are Alaned's thoughts on the situation?
She's honestly surprised this didn't happen sooner. But she's going to keep those stakes on her just in case he needs temporarily immobilized.
Okay.
Better be safe than not have any defense.
As you remain at camp, we see Thomas disappearing in the distance, becoming smaller as he climbs the hill leading up to the face of this mountain ledge. And further in the distance, we see the small dots of these men as they've almost arrived. We're going to change scenes as we follow Cormac dashing away into the wilderness. Where does Cormac go? What's going through his mind?
Right now, he's half man, half beast as he dashes into the woods, trying to find some innocent animal to take out his rage on. Perhaps an unsuspecting deer that he can grab and drain dry.
As it so happens, as you're continuing along and you get closer down this stream, which is widening quickly, you can see that within less than a mile it opens up into a proper river and maybe even a waterfall at the end. And you think you spot some small shapes of maybe deer close to the watering hole. along the side of this water.
He will, of course, slow his run and move at a more measured pace, even as his beast screams at him for blood.
Alright, I'll take a dex stealth from you.
This won't go well.
Or survival. They both apply to hunting here.
The same roll either way. One success.
You take some of the experiences of your childhood hunting and you apply that with well enough success. You get within range that you think a quick burst of speed you could be on top of this. Although it wouldn't take much for them to start to move away. It seems for now they don't notice you.
They're going to be quick. He's going to toss a rock off to the left while beginning to move with great speed off to the right.
Give me a wit survival, difficulty 5.
That might go better.
You time it very well, and the distraction is very useful in drawing their attention. The group of them, there's 3 of them, and you can see that they are little fell ponies, not quite as big as horses. And 2 of them are at the watering hole, and all of them stop and just start to, as they look in the direction of this splash, as the stone hits the water, as you move on the other side, and you're upon them just feet away before they react to you.
And he will grab the nearest around the throat and slake his thirst.
You're too quick for them to react by the time you're at the neck of this first pony. How much do you take?
All of it. Although animals only give half blood points. I know that horses have a lot.
Once you drain all of it and you find the taste is very bitter, it's probably some of the worst blood you've had, although it is warm and you haven't had any in some time. And of course the other 2 ponies go fleeing at top speed, galloping away further down the valley, and by the time you've drained this thing, you've replenished 5 blood points.
And he is at full. And he sits on the ground next to the thing, panting. The beasts, they're satisfied for now. He lays his hand upon the dead thing's neck, thinking about Bolt and what would happen should he ever lose control around his favorite pet. But he'll stay here for a while.
Alright. So you sit there by this exsanguinated pony, by this growing riverbed. A very light and weak sound of the water moving by is somewhat relaxing to you, even in your undead state. With the moon coming down, if you could forgive how barren and dangerous this land was, it's almost serene. And the scene ends as we transition back to Tom. We open up following him to this growing slope as he gets within view of the men in these cave. for this cave entrance. You can see you are barely half a mile from the camp when you approach what might have once passed for a trail. The gravel here is less dense, and you can see flat stones placed down into a makeshift path. It would have easily been missed from the bed of the valley, as this path doesn't go down very far, and the cave opening itself is actually eastward facing. You see the three men have not gone inside. The entrance is about 10 feet high, and you can see carved stone pillars at its mouth. And the men greet you, saluting as you approach, looking surprised. Sir?
Don't sir me.
Yes.
Have you seen any sign? Anything moving around?
No, sir. We've been very quiet, listening. He shakes his head. We did see this, though. None of us can read it. And he points over to one of the stone pillars where there's some very faint carved writing along the column.
Can I make out what it says?
You can, because it's in Latin, and you read. It reads, Montibus Magnus, Ferrum. Great Hills, Iron. Looks like some kind of marking post.
Old Roman mine. Thomas is going to go ahead and take a moment to listen.
Sure. Perception, alertness, difficulty 6. You don't hear anything. You listen for a good 30 seconds and it's dead quiet.
Seems we have our answer. Even so, he'll cup his hands around his mouth and call in. Hello, the mine! Expecting full well that he'll hear his own voice echo back.
You don't hear an echo, which is actually strange.
Can I throw intelligence occult? Because I feel like there's a canine discipline that does this sort of thing.
So you're trying to figure out if maybe some canine discipline is at work here?
Yeah.
I'll give you a intelligence occult difficulty 8. You think you're aware of some gifts that some Canaanites have that can alter perception, change the way people hear and see things. You don't know a whole lot about it, but you know it exists in some form. Whether that's happening here, you don't know.
Have either of you taken any steps inside the mine?
No, sir. No, we did not want to without your permission, without orders to.
Good lads. Go head back to camp. Report what you've seen. He'll pick up a rock. I'll be right behind you.
Sir? He looks confused.
Just a hunch.
Yes, sir. He nods, and the other men look pleased to be leaving this place, this cave, and they follow him, heading back down. Leaving you alone, what does Thomas do?
He'll wait for them to get, just down off the steps leading out, and he'll toss the rock into the cavern, or into the cave, just to see what happens.
Alright, like as far as you can?
I mean, what I want to see is, A, is this in fact a real cave opening, or is it an illusion? B, will I still hear the rock once it starts clattering down the inside of the cavern?
Alright. You throw the rock into the darkness of this cave, and after maybe a good second of airtime, you hear the familiar clack of rock on stone and a second clack as it lands. It seems like it hit a wall pretty close once it went in.
That I can't see.
You cannot see, or it's also very dark. There's no light inside.
Would I imagine that the men are out of earshot?
By now, mostly.
He'll call in again. Ellen.
You do not get an immediate response.
I heard a but in that statement.
You didn't hear me say but.
Well, not out loud.
I'm thinking... Yes, I'm thinking. I'm gonna say no, you don't get a response.
He paces the cave entrance for a little while. Thoughtful, pondering. Damn your eyes, Cormac. And he plunges into the darkness.
All right. You go into the darkness. And you find very quickly that the moon does not help you very much here. Very quickly it's near pitch black. As you go deeper, make a perception alertness roll, difficulty 8. You're having a lot of trouble navigating this. You quickly feel a stone wall, and then you turn and you find nothingness, nothing to reach out for, and you can still see where the entrance is, but you're having a lot of trouble moving around in here.
He's going to keep an eye over his shoulder for the cave entrance, just because he doesn't want to lose sight of it, just in case there's a turn in the cave wall or what have you.
And you're just trying to get as far as you can?
Without losing sight of the light from outside, yeah.
You can't go very far without doing that, because you find, by feel, more than anything, that this cave takes a very sharp turn into utter pitch black darkness. You don't know what goes beyond, but if you go any further, you'll have nothing.
He'll give a listen again.
Make another perception alertness, difficulty 7. Was that you? 5 successes?
Yep.
Oh, wow. You can hear something now. Now that you're closer in, there's something further in the darkness. It's something you've heard before. Hushed breathing. Very subtle shift of weight on stone. It's very hard to detect, but with all of your successes, there's someone or something very close.
Yeah, that's about the moment that Tom's going to start making a strategic withdrawal towards the light at the end of the cavern, right, the mouth of the cave.
All right. Easily enough, you make your way back out. Nothing comes after you, no one emerges with you. You're back outside. What will Tom do now?
He'll call down to the cave. Left you a note. We'll be leaving now. Then he'll head down the mountain, or down the cliffside.
I'm still thinking. Alright, you make your way down the mountainside after calling back into the cave. Elenid, meanwhile, at the camp, it seems like much of the activity has died down as far as the talking of this conflict, and everyone seems to be just about ready to go. The supplies are being put back together, and the horses are still staked in the ground, attached to their reins, and the camps are mostly pulled together. Many of the men are finishing up some last things, but there's a couple campfires still going for the men who are done. You see Tom coming back down the mountain.
Would she not hear back from the people who returned first?
Yes, you would have. A little bit ahead of him. They came down to report that they didn't see or hear anything, and that Tom seemed like he was going to do something up there. They don't know what.
Alright, if she sees Tom in the distance, she'll go and meet him halfway.
Alright. You see Eleanor approach you, and she meets you just at the edge of camp.
I take it your delay wasn't for some jolly stroll.
No. I had a hunch. The hunch itself was flawed. But we may have found at least half of what we were out here looking for. There was
Her
definitely
face
something.
falls a bit. In which way?
Heavy breathing. Well, not heavy. Definitely breathing. There's something in there.
I sincerely hope it's just a bear, not the worst case scenario.
The thought had crossed my mind. It could be a bear. But I made enough noise that a bear would have stirred, and it's not late enough in the season for them to be hibernating. He drums on his chin with one finger.
Alright, then once Cormac gets back, we need to set out as soon as we can.
That's what I told it. Though if it had been the other, can't fathom why I'm still walking around.
Yes, I wouldn't be able to think of a reasonable excuse as to why either. But the person who knows most about them seems to be gone currently. So we can't exactly pick for ideas outside of speculation.
He'll be back. We still have his horse.
We cut over, returning back to Cormac, sitting beside his desiccated, or at least exsanguinated pony. You've had some time to cool by the stream.
Then after he's had some time to think, he'll get up and make his way back to camp, not bothering to wash the blood from his face.
Okay. About 20-25 minutes later, you all see Cormac returning at a calmer pace back to camp, although certainly bloodier than you remember seeing him.
Are the men looking in that direction?
They happen to not be. They're sitting around campfires talking amongst themselves.
Okay, immediately after she sees that he's bloodier than usual, she glances over Thomas. Diversionary tactics?
Thomas will hand her a cloth for Cormac's face and go towards the men. Go ahead and douse those fires.
Alright, she'll head over to Cormac then.
Alright. So Cormac, you see Elenid approaching you with a cloth.
He stops and looks down at the cloth.
She hands it to him and
What the bloody hell is this for?
to clean yourself, man. If the men here see you like this, there's going to be some very serious questions.
He looks surprised by what she's saying, and then he remembers that he did decide not to clean himself. Bloody hell, the men. I forgot about them. Thomas put me in quite a fine state, as you saw.
Yes, and then he ended up proceeding to the cave where, after going a certain lengths in there, there was some type of heavy breathing. Which I sincerely hope was just a bear.
But at least he went to look. And he'll begin wiping off his face. How do I look?
How does he look after he starts cleaning himself?
He looks okay. You might be able to forgive the remaining grime for the wearing of travel.
Okay. Better just, might need to say you just got a little roughed up in that fight, is all.
You can always lick it off me. And he grins at her.
Now. I hardly think this is the time or the place for such things.
Quite right.
And Elened does have some thoughts on the, well, tactics of someone being sent forward with the scouting party. More when they don't seem to be that skilled in the scouting field, but for the sake of keeping things civil, she's keeping her mouth shut.
Take a wits alertness from everyone. Difficulty 7. For Tom, it's going to be difficulty 8 since he's distracting the men. Alright, Cormac and Thomas. Each of you, just in the passive movements of your head, you catch sight of something. You almost missed it, but having become accustomed to viewing this fairly barren landscape, changes stand out to you more. And the two of you see Up the ridge, by the cave, a figure has emerged. A man, maybe. He seems to be looking down at the camp.
Thomas lifts a hand in the direction of the figure and points at the cairn he built with the note stacked underneath the topstone, or capstone.
You don't seem to get a response, or there's none visible.
He wasn't asking for one. He's going to go ahead and... does everyone look like they're ready to move out?
For the most part, yes.
And then he's going to mount his horse. And look to his companions.
If it's clear they're going to be leaving, Elened will make her way back.
Thomas mounting up seems to be the cue that a lot of people were waiting on. What does Cormac do?
Cormac's just standing, looking up at the figure. His stance slightly edgy. Not sure what's going to happen now. He'll wait to see if the figure reacts once everybody begins mounting, but he himself will not yet.
We're in the gentleman's back garden, Cormac.
So Cormac seems to be waiting.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to know who the bloody hell the gentleman is.
It seems after a long period of waiting, and at this point a lot of the men are starting to unstake some of the horses and saddle up. It does seem like the man is making his way down the ridge towards you. It's slow and cautious, but he continues to advance.
Cormac will hand the reins to Elened and move forward himself.
I don't know how to handle one of these.
Just don't let him wander off. He'll be fine. Can't say the same for myself.
Thomas will turn his horse around.
And you get a look from Corporal Jenkins. Sir? Should we follow?
No. We'll wait. A man alone out here probably enjoys his privacy. I'd much rather a one-on-one interaction than a cadre of armed men surrounding him. He needn't be frightened or threatened. People do foolish and terrible things when they're threatened.
Cormac, you advance towards the man. Of course, half a mile away, it's a little bit of a walk. Fortunately, there's not much else to see between the two of you, and so it's not difficult to maintain sight of him. And with the two of you walking to close distance, you manage to get within about 100 paces by about 5 minutes in. You could see this man, he's fairly young, somewhere in his 20s, short brown hair, stubby facial hair, and dressed plainly in leathers. He looks... Well, I'll take a perception empathy from you, Standard. Gauge his demeanor. He's putting on a strong face, but you can see fear in his eyes. He has a sword, it's sheathed at his side.
When he's within parley distance, he will say, "Evening to you, son. We come in peace."
Who are you? Where do you come from?
We come from the city, that way. And he'll point in the direction of Chester.
And what are you doing here?
Scouting for some villains that might have come this way.
His eyebrows sharpen in concern.
Saw no trace of them. Saw none of anything or anyone except for you. Where did you come from?
He looks behind you towards the group of men, many of whom are mounted and looking at the two of you like a spectacle. And ignoring your question, he looks back to you. Do you have herbs? Food? Water?
Perhaps we have some we might spare, he says. Are you out here alone?
I need supplies. And he looks anxious.
Do you have someone injured?
Yes.
But not you.
He shakes his head, still looking anxious and tense.
Do you live out here?
I cannot answer these things. I need... And he seems to fumble for words. Bandages?
Is Cormac picking up any hint of an accent he might recognize?
Possibly. I'll take an intelligence enigmas. Standard difficulty. You've heard some traders on the docks with similar accents, and they're often from the lands of Norway and Sweden, Denmark. Similar.
Places you'd only seen on a map, basically.
Mm-hmm.
If I was able to procure you the supplies you need, would you parlay then?
He shows clear uncertainty on his face. Supplies. Please.
How many? How many do we have to feed?
Just one.
Give me a quarter of an hour.
He looks uncertain and kind of paces almost in place, but nods after a moment.
I'll have to explain this to them. They won't just give them up.
He nods and seems to wait.
Cormac will bow slightly, back away for a little bit, and then turn around and return to the gathered men.
You all see after some discussion you can't hear that Cormac is returning, and after a short walk of a couple minutes he's within speaking range of the group of you.
He's just a scared boy, Cormac tells them. He says he has an injured party who needs herbs and supplies, water. Not from around here. Has a strange accent.
North or south, would you say?
Quite far northern, I should think. Denmark, Norway. Places I've never seen.
Nor I. My ventures were the Mediterranean, further south.
Must have been where you learned your dreadful French.
Grew up speaking. It's not important.
Cormac grins. So the question is, should we give him what he asks for?
I don't see why not. You might offer... We might take his injured party into town if he'd like.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
It's the thought that counts. Isn't that what they say?
Then you can come back with me when we bring in the supplies.
As you like.
Use that silver forked tongue of yours.
Gentlemen, and he'll turn his horse around. We've an opportunity to serve the public good. And he'll set about talking them out of what rations they'll have in excess, given that they were set up for a 7-day outing. It's only going to end up being 6.
Some of the men grumble, but no one's going to defy you, certainly.
What all is he able to talk out of them?
You get a collection of supplies, some blankets, some apples. You get a canteen of water. Is there anything you're specifically trying to get out of them?
Well, he did say herbs and bandages.
One of the men does show that he brought some herbs from home, herbal remedies from his mother. He is loath to give them up, but in the end, he parts with them.
Tom will exchange a few coins with him in recompense.
And you do get some bandages. It's very simple, crude tape. Kind of a cloth rolled up. This is all kind of collected into a knapsack.
He'll fold it over and tie it off and sling it over one shoulder. The only other bandages I was able to find that aren't currently in use are here.
So Cormac, you see what's been gathered for you.
Cormac nods. I'm going back alone, then.
Well, you did ask me to come with. I'm happy to do so.
Good.
And he'll gesture for Cormac to lead the way.
Boy has something odd about him. Gives me the creeping willies.
I just hope the two of us coming back together doesn't spook him.
Let's just try not to be too forceful. He doesn't seem very interested in parley.
Or much of anything, it seems. Tom will shrug and follow after.
Before you get too far, Jenkins rides up. Sir, just in case. And he lifts up a lantern.
Who's he offering it to?
To Thomas.
Are you just going to stare at it all day, or are you going to take it?
But he had just waved it off.
Oh, I didn't hear that. So you wave off the lantern?
Yeah, he said that he'll wave it off and say, no. Thanks for the thought, son, but there's plenty of moonlight.
Not inside that cave, there isn't.
I don't intend on going into another man's home uninvited.
Jenkins looks to you, Cormac.
I'll take the lantern, son, thank you.
He nods.
He calls him son, yet doesn't look much older than he does.
Alright. So two of you make your way... Are you mounted? You're both mounted?
No, Cormac's on foot.
Okay.
As is.
Okay. So two of you...
Yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just really quick, how's Elena doing with Bolt's reins, by the way?
She is extremely uneasy with the horse. She does not do the entire animal thing.
Has there been any girlish screams or anything? He hit me with his tail!
To his credit, Bolt seems to be behaving fairly well, despite not being with his master.
Sometimes I forget Elena's a vicious Lasombra and not a farm girl.
Alright. And by the time the two of you turn to go back, you see that this man is back up at the top of the ledge, awaiting you, looking back and forth between the cave entrance and the group of you. After a short jaunt, the two of you make your way up the ledge, with the 11 behind you watching with curiosity, some with some boredom, some with some mild frustration, but no one's really saying anything. And Elenid holding the bolt.
Maybe we should have asked Elenid to come with us, he'll say softly to Thomas.
I'd rather someone competent remain with men. Yeah.
Alright. You again make your way up, and Cormac, you can now see the same that Thomas saw, this incomplete trail that leads up to this mine entrance that was almost missed. And likewise, you see the entrance very quickly disappears into almost pitch black darkness, but the man is barely more than a boy, really. He's standing there outside of it and looks to you very, very serious as you approach.
Cormac will actually hold the lantern toward the sign. Do you know what this says, boy?
No.
This is an iron mine. Very dangerous to be here.
It is dangerous. He nods a few times. Not good for us to stay. Or you.
We have no intention of staying.
Do you have supplies? Herbs?
He'll hold up the sack that they put together.
He takes it greedily and looks it over, looking up to you with some renewed hope and nods a couple times.
Who's it that's injured?
He looks between the two of you. My cousin.
Does your cousin also live out here?
I must tend to her, he says after looking at you for a long time.
Does she go on 2 legs or 4?
He looks at you very seriously, this serious expression he seems to carry, and turns away from you. And he reaches behind the back edge of this column that's been holding up the mine entrance to this little slot in the mountainside that was very, very subtle, very discreet. And he takes out a torch, unlit. Light? He looks down at your lantern.
Cormac will nod and reach to open the shutter, keeping his hand well away from the flame, of course.
He lights the torch and takes the sack, looking at the two of you, actually kind of backing into the cave as he goes in,
Cormac eyes the naked flame warily and looks at Thomas.
Tom will look back at Cormac. His expression is fairly easily read as acquiescence.
Cormac shrugs, grins, and follows the Norseman.
With Tom just behind him, perhaps we can offer some aid.
He turns to you with the light now illuminating some of the darkness and does this motion with his hand from his chin down as if to quiet. And he turns to proceed further in. The two of you continue to follow in?
Yes, quietly though.
Yep.
Alright.
Until I trip on a rock or something stupid like that.
Alright. Thomas, you can see much better now that it's illuminated in here. As this man turns a corner quickly, you can see that this mineshaft isn't very large at all. And as you turn the corner, and you can see that he's continuing further down, the light from the torch shows it ends very abruptly. You barely make it 50 feet around the corner before you see that the tunnel ends, but for a much, much narrower opening. The ceiling above you is 10 feet, and this opening at the end of the tunnel is only maybe 6 feet high and just a couple feet wide, barely wide enough for a man to get through. And just outside this opening, there is a form huddled in the corner under what looks like some blankets. There's another extinguished torch beside it, and a sword. The man props up his lit torch. He says a few things to this person laying in the blankets. And they stir, and you hear the feminine sounds of, you think, a girl as she's waking up. And he says a few words to her that are audible to you, but do either of you speak Danish?
Not a look of it.
Okay. So you're not sure what he says. But the girl stirs enough that she begins to rise, and you can see the raggedy green blanket around her as the light illuminates more of her. You can see this girl is barely a teenager. Her body's more developed than the child prince Octavia that you met, but not by much. She's fair, with long braids of chestnut hair that almost go down to her waist when she sits up. But you realize that, except for this raggedy green linen wrapped about her, she otherwise appears nude, and her left thigh bears a gash, large and dark, with dried blood, almost blackened, with redness around the edges. Do either of you have medicine or hearth wisdom?
Nope.
Negative.
The girl doesn't seem to have her wits very much about her, but what are Cormac and Thomas doing as this man wakens this and stirs this girl?
That's a nasty wound she has there. At least you can see that much, probably.
Looks bad.
Are you sure we can't help you into town? Perhaps a surgeon there could help.
He turns back to you. You can see that he was taking some of these herbs and kind of pressing them against the wound. But he waves his hand. No town. The girl blinks a few times, looking at you, looking at each of you in turn. And her face grows in alarm and begins to grimace. She turns to this man. Agenter of Worm, de Erbes mit. And she's looking back to you.
I know what she said. Cormac doesn't.
The man's looking back at you now with new anger and surprise. And he reaches for the hilt of his sword. You are monsters.
I guess it depends on one's perspective.
And it's quite a thing to say to someone who's trying to help you.
We were leaving before. You sought aid. We'll leave again.
The girl is tense. Her shoulders are high up and her face is pale but angry. There's no fear in her expression as there is in this man's. And she attempts to stand up. But you see her stance weaken and her left leg buckles.
Hold on there, girl. You're quite injured. You want us to leave? We'll leave. We mean you no harm.
Leave now, monsters, for all our sakes.
Thomas will look at the other man. You tell her. You tell her exactly what we said. And when she's well, you know where to find us. We very much would like to have a conversation.
The girl seems to be collapsing from her weakness, and he turns in time to steady her, looking to you and then turning to her as she's collapsing down and drifting back into this unconsciousness. Tova, iknu, Tova.
I think it's our cue to get out of here.
I concur. It seems we've overstayed our welcome.
This man seems to be ignoring you now, just looking at the girl saying this word Tova over and over.
And Cormac's ready to back out of the cave.
Thomas isn't far behind him. Get well soon, Tova.
You are backing out of the cave.
I don't like the way you said that.
As you hear something,
Ah, Jesus.
as this man is looking down at this girl now quickly falling unconscious, there is a feral, monstrous roar which echoes from the darkness further in the cave, behind them, in this hole somewhere. It seems distant, but the roar is savage, and it awakens the beast in each of you.
Is this similar to the roar that I heard in those woods so long ago?
It is different but similar, menacing in its own way.
Let's get the bloody hell out of here.
No point standing on ceremony. Thomas will beat feet.
You want I should carry you?
Am I not coming through? Because I'm pretty sure I was talking.
Oh yeah, you said you were going to beat feet, and then he
Okay.
asked if you wanted, if you wanted that he should carry you.
Quite all right. I think I'll do fine on my own.
Suit yourself. And he's going to activate celerity and get the F out.
Alright. The last you see of the dim light from this torch is this man holding the girl, looking at you with great fear in his eyes. He seems to be trying to get her up, trying to carry her away. But you don't see very much as you run quickly out. Elenid, roll me a wits alertness, difficulty 8. You're with the men who are mounted and waiting, and you're all facing this cave where Thomas and Cormac went into. You think just off in the periphery, there's a movement. The edge of the ridge. Something shadowing you along the edge on the south end.
Can I tell how large it is?
It's tough to say because it's almost the same distance in the opposite direction, about half a mile. It's staying low to the edge, but it's circling around. Everyone's facing north to watch this cave, and it's moving south behind you.
All right. Just in case there are more and other directions head towards us, she's going to try to rearrange the men in a more circular fashion as to have them keep watch in a more concise manner, not simply in one direction.
I will take a wits academics for your tactics. Difficulty 7.
And I do not believe my wits specialty applies. The course tactics does.
Alright, 3 successes. So very quickly, you start organizing the men, occasionally glancing up. You don't see it. You know you saw something before moving around to the south. You look again after you start ordering the men and it's gone. But you're able to quickly arrange the 10 men still there. so that they're looking out in each direction.
All right, that's what she's going to be doing. What she's going to be doing. That's not English. What she's going to be doing. Keeping control over the men while keeping watch and being generally ill at ease while being the only one controlling the horse.
Do you order them to dismount and prepare, or stay mounted, or?
Dismount and prepare.
Okay. The men get excited, perhaps nervous. They're not sure why you're having them do this, but they dismount and form a perimeter. Weapons are drawn, swords are drawn. And you're in the center holding Bolt?
Yes.
Okay, just on the lookout. I will take another wits alertness from you. Also standard difficulty.
Look, there's a typo in there.
Okay. So something catches your eye as you have the men prepare and you're looking around. You see something emerge across the hills. Something coming down from the south. At first you only see its eyes, the reflection of amber light in the shadow. But when you see its full form coming at you at intense speed, it's some kind of great beast, 9 feet high, that's leaping towards the entire group of you into the air. It looks like some kind of wolf-like monster, but with ears like a bat. It's savage and ferocious to behold. And the men look and see, what is that? What is that? And quickly the men turn, and you hear shrieks. As before you even realize what's happening, this thing is already in the middle of your perimeter and is tearing through this first man just a few feet away from you. And it is at this time that Cormac and Thomas, you emerge to see and hear the chaos erupting down below. And you see that the men are screaming. The men are not fighting. They are all broken by the sight of this. Screams and chaos. The horses are trying to flee. None of the men are fighting as this monster is ripping through men. Elenid, what do you do?
Oh boy. Okay. This thing seems to be felling men left and right. Fighting would be futile, correct?
Fighting would be extraordinarily dangerous. None of the men are fighting. Everyone is running, or trying to run. But it is savage and ruthless. Every couple seconds you see another man torn apart brutally in this thing's jaws, or its long, black, sinewy arms cleaving through men with a single swipe. And you're holding Bolt, who is trying against your strength to flee.
Right. So, her main action is, with this beast here and what they've been told lurks in these woods. And she's aware doing this is full suicide. As such, a tactical retreat is in order.
How do you go about retreating?
She's still mounted, is she not?
You were holding the reins.
Okay. She mounts the horse and is going to do her damnedest to try to get the F away from this.
Alright. With no real training and a very alarmed horse, you're gonna be at... We'll go... straight dex, difficulty 8, to try and use this horse to get away and not just fly off of it. After that, we'll go to Thomas and Cormac. Alright, miraculously, you're able to stay on with one success. You're really more just not getting bucked off of Bolt and letting it flee westward towards the pass as this behemoth is moving at incredible speed, creating a bloodbath at the base of this ravine. Horses and men are being torn asunder, bowels being pulled out. And you're able to stay on Bolt, at least for the moment, as really it's carrying you more than you're riding it. Thomas and Cormac, you are seeing some of this unfold in the first few seconds, and you see that Elenid is atop Bolt as your men are being butchered. What do you do?
Well, as upset as he is about the men being butchered, and he is, he realizes now that there's no saving them. So he's going to take off after Bolt and Elened, hopefully trying to mount on the run.
I'm guessing Thomas's horse is already bolted.
Roll a 1d10. It has not. Miraculously, it's stuck to a stake planted in the ground at the edge of camp, and it is trying to escape, but it is not yet. It's one of the few that hasn't been just absolutely eviscerated.
So Thomas is going to try and get to his horse and mount it, and also pull the stake before it, pull the stake and get on before it bolts without him on it.
Okay, you do have to clear about half a mile.
Fair enough. I just wanted you to know.
Yep. And actually, as the two of you are starting to make your way down, you can hear behind you this man is coming out, and he's carrying the girl who's actually trying to run, having bundled her up. He seems to have left everything behind and is running, trying to get further up the ledge, further north. The two of you begin running down the ledge at full speed. I'll take Dex Athletics from both of you. Cormac, are you activating Celerity?
Oh, yes.
Okay. You spending a blood point to multiply your speed?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Let me look at your sheet really quickly. This is probably going to be very short for you. Okay. You could probably clear this distance in... we'll say... 5 successes with your celerity. Thomas is going to require 10. Cormac, you start making good progress down the cliff. Thomas is stumbling a bit on the terrain, moving quickly down this gravel is uneasy, and to keep balance, it slows him down a lot. Start making some rolls. Alright, Elenid, you're still on the horse for now. You can hear the screams of the men dying behind you. Are you still going to try and maintain Bolt to head west out the pass, or where are you trying to guide Bolt?
I'm trying to guide Bolt back to the bloody town.
Alright, I'll take another Dex Athletics, still difficulty 8. Or not Dex Ride, but for you it's just gonna be Dex.
Darn, here I thought I was getting some extra dice.
Sorry. Unless you want to get off and run.
No, I'm certain that being on the horse is still faster than me running on foot.
Okay, roll it out. And I'll take more rolls from Cormac and Thomas in the meantime.
Oh no.
That is a botch for Elenid. You're thrown from Bolt as you are trying to not get bucked off. It is too scared, and you do not have the control, the training to calm it down or to even stay. And you fall and tumble to the ground. And sliding...
How close am I to this thing?
Sliding past you is the upper half of one of these men who you were riding with. And... it seems to still be busy with these other men. There's still men to kill. There are still closer targets. But you can see that everyone is being eviscerated. No one is escaping this thing. It has to go farther and farther to catch the men fleeing, but it is moving at speeds that you've only heard of the elders moving at. Thomas, you make better progress, gaining better footing, and you start making good progress down the hill. Cormac, you're almost back to camp. Are you trying to run more to the camp or more to Elenid in the pass?
More to Elenid.
Okay, that makes more sense. So you're more kind of running westward as you go back down the hill. And you're getting close. You're almost there. Elenid, give me a Dex Athletics, or you can take the turn to just get up.
Oh, she has every intention on at least attempting to run.
Okay. Standard Dex Athletics. Okay, you're up on your feet quickly. Bolt's long gone. The men are dying around you, and there's only so many for them to die before this thing is going to turn on you. But you continue, you get back up on your feet and you start running. I'll take more rolls from Cormac and Thomas. Alright, both of you are very close to getting to Elenid, who is you can see that she got flung from Bolt and is on her feet running now, as the men behind her, maybe 100, 200 feet away, are being thrown apart in multiple pieces. This thing's claw is just raking through them like water. And the two of you realize that there's another one of these things coming from the cave you just exited out of. As you can hear that howl, that savage bestial cry from atop the ledge, as a second one of these monsters emerges and starts moving down. I will take a couple more rolls from Thomas and Cormac, and Elenid as well. Alright, Cormac, you've reached Elenid, and Thomas is just a few seconds behind. Excuse me. So you've caught up to Elenid, and the two of you see that there's nothing left of your group. There's nothing left of the men. Everyone is dead. Most of the horses are dead. There is one horse coming up in your direction, having just freed itself. You realize, Thomas, that's your horse that just freed itself and is heading westward towards the group of you. Elenid, what are you doing in this moment?
She's not necessarily looking to see if her coterie members are catching up to her or not. Her intention is getting away from there as quickly as she can. So she would not, unless they said something or if anyone tried to grab her, she would not be paying attention to them in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, so you don't know what's going on behind you. You're making good progress to the pass, but it's still a ways off. What is Thomas doing?
Have I gained the horse? Or am I in range to grab its reins?
Make one more roll. All you need is one success. And you'll basically have arrived at where Cormac and Elenid are. And you'll also be in range to maybe intercept this horse. Alright. You cleared the last of this distance down this ledge, and you're next to Cormac, and not far from Elenid, who's still running and doesn't seem to have noticed. And you see that your horse is on track to... You're going to intercept it, you just need to be ready for it. Meanwhile, what's Cormac doing?
Cormac's gonna come up behind Elenid and he will yell at her, "I'm going to grab you, girl! Hold on tight!" And he is moving fast.
You hear this call out from behind you, Elenid. And Thomas, I will take a Dex Athletics difficulty 8 to get on a full gallop horse mid-ride.
Well, in that case, I'm definitely going to spend willpower on this one.
4 successes. Describe how Thomas gets on his horse even as it's at full speed coming at him.
Thomas snatches the cinch under the neck of the horse and uses that to gain leverage to draw himself up and around and basically swing directly up into the saddle, snatching up the reins in one smooth motion in process.
You pull it off skillfully, and you're back in the saddle of your horse, who you're in control of now. Elenid, you've heard this cry from Cormac coming up behind you. What do?
She's going to continue running, and she assumes he's going to catch up to her at some point. Given he was running at celerity speeds earlier.
Alright. And I'll take a Wits Alertness, difficulty 7 from each of you, reflexively.
Ooh, that's a thought. Would my wit specialty apply here?
What is your wit specialty?
Cool-headed.
Yes. Roll it out.
And difficulty was?
7. Alright, Thomas and Elenid, you can see that one of these, for you're now realizing, Elenid, you're realizing there's now 2 of these 9-foot tall, black furred monsters, humanoid but wolf-like somehow. One of them is coming straight for you now. That's what Thomas and Elenid realize. Cormac, you're running at full speed to catch up to Elenid, who's looking back behind her briefly. And you're going to try and carry her at celerity speed?
Yes.
While looking behind her, she's probably muttering some select, more unsavory words under her breath in her native tongue.
I'll take a strength athletics from Cormac. Difficulty 7 to pick up Elenid like luggage while running. Alright. Go ahead and describe Cormac as you quickly move up behind Elenid to sweep her off her feet, quite literally.
Alright. Cormac dashes up behind her, the pounding of his feet on the snow very soft, as she feels a pair of strong arms grip her from behind and lift her off the ground, almost effortlessly. He's carrying her almost like a baby, except she's clearly not. And he looks at her and says, "Hi."
Hi! There's one of them chasing us right now.
"And let's not die today." And he'll start weaving through the woods.
Directly ahead of you is the pass between these 2 barren ledges. That's the way back to town. Every other direction goes deeper into the Pennines.
Oh, sweet goddess. Then towards the pass it is.
Alright. So you've got a good grip on her, and you're running. And now I'm just going to need rolls for Dex Athletics for you, and Dex Ride for Thomas, as this thing is now chasing you. One of them is, at least.
Oh, crap.
Alright. Thomas, since you're mounted, and Cormac, since you're moving at celerity speed, your successes count for 2. Unfortunately, Cormac got no successes. So Cormac, this thing is catching up to you very quickly. By the time you got to Ellenage, she had some distance away from the camp and away from these things, but it is very quickly catching up to you, gaining ground, moving on all fours, its massive limbs, muscular and sinewy, pushing itself and propelling itself like no creature you've seen. You barely have time to look back before you see it's almost in range of you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Since I'm being here not doing anything, can I use my shadow tentacles to try to restrain it so we have more time to get the hell out of there?
You can. It will be higher difficulty since you're being carried and moved at the same time.
Fair enough.
What do you want to roll? What do you want to do?
3rd level of obtenebration. The arms, the shadow tentacles, as I like to call them.
Manipulation occult difficulty is going to be 8 for you. And as that's happening, I will take another roll for Dex, Athletics, and Writing, respectively.
I'm using willpower.
Okay.
Huh. I think the +1 ended up messing that up. Nope. 1 success. That makes sense.
Alright. So you, let's see here. You have a tentacle that protrudes out of the darkness. Which shadow are you choosing? Because since the moon gives a good amount of light, there's the shadow in front of it, there's a shadow of you and Cormac.
The shadow between us and it.
Okay. So you cast that out about 20 feet, and that's basically as close as it is to you. It's very close to you and gaining.
Once it gets close enough to the tentacle, she has every intention for it to at least attempt to restrain the beast to buy them some time.
Alright. Roll, let's see, Strength and Dex of your Attenebration rating. So I will have you roll straight Strength. Or rather, straight Attenebration rating for its strength. Unless you're spending more blood to make it better or something.
I'll spend a point to make it better. I can only spend 1 a turn, so that's gonna be me tapped out.
Okay. Alright, so this thing's gonna reach out and try and slow this monster down. And it's gonna try and barrel through. You see that your tendril is almost ran through. This thing doesn't seem to slow down much at all. And there's nothing left of your tendril once it's on the other side, it just keeps moving with a single move of its claw. It's just through the tendril. Cormac, what was your running roll? Most recent?
I don't think he rolled us most recent.
I did not, sorry.
Yeah, go for that.
That's because I want to do something.
Oh, what do you want to do?
Submitted.
Okay. Alright. Despite Elenid's best efforts, this thing is still getting closer to you. And you can hear the sounds of this thing galloping behind you. The sound of its giant claws and feet behind you now. It's close enough that you can hear it behind you. You think in the next few seconds it's going to be on top of you. You have enough time for one more action. You can either keep trying to run or do something else. This thing's going to try. You know it's going to be on top of you in the next couple seconds. Thomas, you've gotten good enough distance. It seems like it's almost as fast as your horse, but you're riding hard and you're starting to pull away from it. But you, looking over your shoulder briefly, you can see this thing is about to be on top of Cormac and Elenid.
Can I... I want to use Dread Gaze on it, but I don't know how effective that's going to be.
Okay. While you're thinking about that, Cormac, what do you want to do? Or Elenid?
Does it look like he's going to jump at us? He'll ask Elenid.
He's going to be upon us in a few moments.
Do I do something risky? Or do we keep going?
If we keep running, it's going to catch us anyway.
Right you are, then. Alright, is there anything around here to duck behind?
No, that's the problem. Is this land is very barren. At least in this ravine you've ended up in, there's very little. There's barely any vegetation at all. You can see Thomas has reached the pass. He's between the narrowing. You're about half the distance since you both began, and there's nothing between you and the pass. You're just running uphill.
Alright, so what Cormac is intending to do is to bamboozle this thing. He wants to slow enough so that it thinks it's won, and is going to pounce them, and then he's going to dash underneath its legs.
Alright.
And I am going to use Dread Gaze on it.
You're much farther away now. You've reached the pass. You've been riding hard.
Right.
You can ride back.
Yeah, because I'm definitely going to spend willpower on this.
Okay, so you ride back so you can reach Cormac and Elenid again?
So I can try and scare this fucker.
Okay. Meanwhile, Cormac, I will take a... Wits. You can do Wits Athletics or Wits Survival.
I did spend some more blood there, even though I'm using wits right now.
I could see you using Dexterity instead of Wits. They're both applicable in different ways.
So Dex plus Athletics?
You can do that, yeah.
Ooh, can I spend a willpower on it?
Yes, you can.
I will do that as well. What's the difficulty?
Difficulty, because you know this thing's about to attack you. I'm going to give you a difficulty of 8 to pull this off, to basically duck under it and let it go flying past you with all of its speed and ferocity.
Three successes with the willpower.
Yep. So you do it. You definitely move under it, turning sharply. And Elenid, you can see, perhaps to your terror, this thing comes within inches of your face, and its massive jaw looks down at you as it leaps, and Cormac moves under it. And you can see just how gargantuan this monster is as it passes over you, and its sinewy, leathery muscles. It's like an abomination of nature as it moves over you. And it stops, skidding up some of the gravel, turning to appraise you. And Elenid, you can see over Cormac's shoulder, the second one of these wolf-like creatures is now also in pursuit. And Thomas, you can see as well. Cormac and Elenid are about to be pincered between two of these things.
Am I close enough to hit him with the Dread Gaze?
I'll say yes. If you've just been riding backwards, we'll say yes.
And he'll yell, "Oi! Fuzzy arse!" and then hit him.
Alright, roll your Charisma, Intimidation. Difficulty is going to be... Let's see here... 8.
Why you do that to me? Also, in case I didn't say it loud enough, willpower is being spent here.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes for 3 successes.
Alright, you get this thing's attention, and it turns to you, its bat ears pointed backwards, and its glowing amber eyes turn to you as its frothing, slavering mouth opens and this maw of teeth looks in your direction. And as you look at it and you instill the power of your blood behind your gaze, you see it pause. It seems to take a moment to appraise you without moving any closer. You've certainly got its attention and stunned it at the very least. But Elenid, you see that the second one of these creatures is approaching very quickly and will be behind you in just a few moments. What are you doing?
Cormac, get directed in the direction you want to go. I am going to obscure the area around us to make it more difficult.
Got it. And he is moving very fast indeed. It's clear that he's directed some blood towards his muscles.
All right. So it looks like the one that was chasing you seems to be paused for a moment in a standoff with Thomas. But you will have to contend with this one, at least for now. Cormac, go ahead and make your Dex Athletics. Where are you trying to run to now? With this
Towards
one?
the pass still.
Okay, running past this thing now?
Yes, sort of in a circle around it.
Okay.
Hoping that Elened can help with that.
Yep, I'm using Nocturne to make a field of darkness so it makes it more difficult to get to us.
Okay.
Unless it uses scent, in which case we're screwed either way.
Cormac, moving at celerity speed, you're about 5 successes away from making the pass.
Alright. Make that roll.
Yeah, go for it. Okay, you start to make some progress. Let's see how much this thing... Alright. So there is one of these beasts still standing off with Thomas. It seems unable or unwilling to move any further or advance, although it snarls defensively as it gets down on all fours. The other one, approaching from what remains of the camp, is starting to pursue you and is gaining on you, although you have some breathing room for now. Thomas, what are you doing?
Can I use Dominate on it? I don't know that this will work, but...
You can try. You've never faced one of these things before.
Well, he's off of Cormac and Elened. I don't want to chance something I... Yeah, I think running is a thing.
Okay.
Try and make that pass and get the fuck on.
Okay. I'll take a Dex ride from you. And you, since you're at the same area, you're also about 5 successes since you're riding. Okay. You start to make some progress. And do you look over your shoulder at all, or are you just going?
He might glance over his shoulder, but mostly he's focused on staying on the horse and getting the fuck out of Dodge.
Okay. You think whatever success you had is starting to wear off, and it seems to be shaking off whatever you did to it, because it's now pursuing you along with this other one, and they're both now coming at the both of you. Alright, the one you were gazing at is shaking it off and is starting to come after you. You're able to keep the distance you had. This second one is starting to catch up to Cormac and Elened. I will take another Dexath from Cormac.
Nocturne time.
Oh, go for your Nocturne.
Oh,
Shit.
God.
It's difficult trying to focus your powers while being carried, and you're not able to concentrate enough to place one single area you can manifest darkness. It doesn't come to you. Okay. So the second beast that's chasing Cormac and Elenid now is almost neck and neck. If it gets any closer, it's going to be in range to attack. I'll take fleeing rolls from both of you again. Alright, Thomas, you're clearing the pass now. This thing's keeping up with you, but you're getting out. And did I get one from Cormac?
A new one? Because...
Yes.
Okay. Actually, I can push it well beyond my normal limits, can't I, for one scene? One round?
I think you can go one above your generational maximum for a scene. You can go further than that for, I think, 3 turns.
I'm gonna go further than that then.
Okay.
This is like, yeah. So, there's the...
Okay. You push yourself farther than you ever have. You need to get more than 5 successes or this thing's going to be in swiping range. Ooh. You're just out of range of this thing. It's starting to follow you into the pass, and you can see the woods in the distance. You're not quite back to it yet, but you are getting out of the ravine at least. Although these things are fast, and you don't know how long they'll stay on you.
I'm gonna use Nocturne again.
Okay, go for it. Alright, with 1 success, you have created a cloud of blackness about 10 feet in diameter. So this is going to make it a little bit harder for them to see you briefly. Okay. It's going to make it harder for them to chase you. So another fleeing roll from both of you. The one chasing Elenid and Cormac is going to be at higher difficulty. Although as the pass narrows, you're getting closer and closer to each other. Alright, this thing's going to be in swiping range of Thomas. And this is going to be harder for the second one. And one more roll for Cormac running away. You just need 1 success or more to keep the distance or gain. Okay, you get a lot more distance from this thing. You can see that this great nocturne, this darkness that manifests behind you, seems to slow it down or confuse. You don't see what happens, but you don't see this thing emerging the other side immediately. off to your left, maybe 30 or 40 feet, you do see that Thomas is about to be attacked, as this thing has caught up to him. Fortunately, attacking someone mounted is a little bit harder for you. For it, rather. Alright. I'm gonna need a soak roll.
Can I try to draw my sword and parry its claws at all?
I will let you try, but it's gonna be really awkward, so it's gonna be a higher difficulty.
Yeah, well, I mean, anything to reduce some of those 5 brawl successes that somehow happened.
Yeah. So I'll take Dex melee difficulty 7 for you. This is going to be harder parrying behind you while mounted and chased.
You said 7?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and spend that willpower again, too. Because,
Okay.
yeah.
Alright, 2 successes. It's still going to connect, but you manage to deflect some of the damage as this thing is leaping in the air with this outstretched claw, which you can see is just massive, this massive black hand with claws raking through you as you turn to try and parry this away. Describe Thomas as he's trying to parry this.
In a smooth motion, Thomas draws his sword and swings wildly to try and deaden the blow and deflect the claws of this creature. It's passably effective.
You manage to slow the attack down as you catch the arm, but it's very strong, and it pushes your blade back as it rakes into you. You have fortitude.
I absolutely do.
You are going to need it. You can either roll your fortitude or spend blood.
I'm going to spend blood.
Okay. Alright. It's a good thing you spent blood, because this thing is hideously strong. Its talons tear through you, pushing your blade back despite your parry. And it cuts through your chest, rending your arm apart. And you've taken 4 aggravated. I'm gonna need a Dex Ride difficulty 7 to stay mounted after that attack. Alright, you manage to maintain a hold on your horse, even as this thing rips through you and then continues running. What are Cormac and Elenid's reactions? Is because you're seeing this 30 or 40 feet off, that Thomas is being mauled by this thing who's caught up to him. What does Elenid do?
Elena is trying to keep a watch behind her to make sure that once that thing ends up getting on the other side of her cloud, she can drop another shadow field to try to obscure them a bit more and buy them more time.
And what's Cormac's reaction to Thomas being torn at?
I don't think he can see it, can he? He's obscured.
He's off to your side. I mean, the Nocturne is behind you, slowing down the one pursuing you. You can see off to the side, this other beast is pursuing Thomas, and it's ripping him up.
Fuck me! We can't save him.
I have severe concerns about us even being able to save ourselves.
Cormac's gonna keep running, hoping that Thomas can get away.
Okay. One more Dex Ath and one more Dex Ride. Your wound penalties will apply here unless you're spending willpower. Cormac, you keep making progress, but Thomas, you're feeling the weight of your wound is making it harder to hold control of your horse and guide it. And you feel that this thing is about to catch up to you. It's about to take another swipe. You can hear its snarls behind you. And you know, in one more moment, it's about to snatch the unlife out of you. When you hear a new sound above you as you're now in the pass, you hear a howl. A howl from above, and other howls answering it. And there's a blur of motion. You think white or silver. You're not sure. But something is coming down. Something is coming down from the ledge above you. Another great beast emerges, almost hitting you. It tackles this creature. You think another wolf, some kind of great monster, has attacked the one that was attacking you, that was following you. And then you see others. As you look up, you see other faces. Wolves? Something is above you. Something is above you, and you see more of these wolves coming down. And the sounds of snarls and biting and ripping and howls and yelps from behind you. Cormac, you hear this as well, and Elena, you can see both beasts that were pursuing you seem to have been distracted by something, engaged by some new wolf. Wolves killing each other. But this is not like other wolves you've seen. This is like them. Massive, 9-foot muscular creatures. 3 and then 4 coming down. You see blood fly and the sounds of intense rage and combat behind you. Do you continue to flee? Cormac, what do you do?
He's fleeing.
Thomas is going to do his best to flee. But at the same time, he's also going to call out, "Thank you, Tova. We're even."
You continue to ride. You continue to go through the pass. The sounds of this savage battle behind you. The yells echo out across the canyon. For some time, as you're riding, as you're fleeing, and in time it grows quieter. You don't know how long you have to run and ride and flee. Eventually you reach the edge of the forest again, still in the Pennines somewhere. Somewhere on this path you came from, but out of the ravine, away from the pass. Thomas, your left arm is almost gone. There's not much of it left. You're badly wounded. You think you've run 3 or 4 miles, Cormac. You're still running while Thomas is still riding, but you can see how badly wounded he is. And the two of you are moving together.
Eventually, Cormac will have to slow to a stop. Not because he's gotten tired, but because he hopes he's put enough distance.
I still have my arm, yeah?
You have pieces of it. The bone is showing. The lower bones of the forearm are broken, and the muscle is ripped out. Your hand is mostly gone. Your shoulder is exposed to the muscle. It's functionally useless.
Can I go ahead and heal the first level of ag?
If you find somewhere to rest, you can. If you stop.
We're going to have to stop.
Once you stopped and you can rest, yes. So it seems like Cormac at least is coming to a stop.
Thomas will also come to a stop alongside Cormac and do his best to dismount.
Can I use my survival to find any nearby animals around here to replenish some blood?
You can try. Perception, survival, difficulty 8.
I'm sorry, what are we doing?
She's hunting for animals.
Okay.
I'm down to 5 blood points. I need it.
We could just finish off Thomas. Just kidding.
You find... You find a single deer in the woods. It's not much. It's actually asleep when you find it, nestled up in some bushes.
Alright, I'm going to try to be stealthy as I move up to it.
Okay.
Try being the key word here since I have no dots in stealth.
Be dex stealth, difficulty 7.
By some miracle, I pass.
You do. You're quiet enough and cautious enough, maybe determined enough. You get close enough to feed on this thing. It starts to wake up as you're approaching, but you're too close by that point. Do you drain this thing dry, I imagine?
Yes.
Alright. You also taste the acrid blood of animals, and after draining it dry, gain 4 blood points. It's not a very large creature, and its blood is not that nourishing.
After being finished with her feeding, she will attempt to clean off what bloodstains there are.
Okay. You return soon enough back to Cormac and Thomas. Cormac, you've rarely seen wounds as bad as what Thomas has right now. There's not much of an arm left to speak of.
Though Thomas does start the process of repairing the damage.
They bloody ripped your arm off, like it was nothing.
Thomas is grinning.
What do you have to grin about?
I think they're ready to parlay.
Very fucking funny. I definitely think we made an impression.
And all it cost us was 10 men and an arm. He winces a bit as he chuckles.
I'm sorry about the men. I know how much you wanted them to live.
As am I. We should have left sooner. It doesn't sound like he's saying it in an accusatory way, more self-deprecating.
All the same, Cormac looks wounded. And what's even worse than that is I lost my fucking horse.
I'm sorry about Bolt. He's a smart horse. I'm sure he'll have found his way back to somewhere.
If they ain't caught and eaten him by now.
I think they have more pressing concerns than horse flesh.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe later I'll get a chance to look around. But for now, we have a lot of traveling to do.
Quite a lot. And only one horse between us.
And finding shelter for the daylight's going to be near impossible now.
Out of curiosity, if someone were to ride hard all night, how long would it take them to get back to Chester?
The factors working against you... I was muted. The factors working against you would be the rough terrain. There's really no road to speak of. Elenid has helped substantially in basically rediscovering the path through the Pennines. So she would be the best at navigating the way back. If you had her knowledge and a horse that didn't stop, you could probably make it back in a full night, but you don't have that anymore. You've been traveling for a couple hours, making it this far. You're also very wounded. Incidentally, you lost your sword along with your hand in that attack.
When did I... I'm very confused.
In the parry. Once it cleaved off most of your arm, it took the sword. Or rather, you lost it.
You said left arm.
I just
Right.
assumed you were parrying with both hands. So it would be a tough ride back. Probably not going to make it tonight.
We go as far as we can tonight. Try and find some shelter. Anything. At dusk, you two take the horse. I'll stay wherever we find. Come back for me, preferably with a vessel or two.
What's Elena doing at this point now that she's returned?
Did she return in time to hear that?
Yes.
You want to stay here, with those things not far off.
God's balls, of course not. But our options are rather slim. The pair of you on a single horse could probably make it back to town. And then back here in 2 days. The three of us walking. Not so much.
You can't push a horse that hard. You'll kill it. Unless, of course,
We go with the horse.
right you are.
And I've not a drop to spare. If it does take you 2 days to get there and back,
How far off is sunrise?
I think somewhere between 6 and 8 hours. It's hard to say.
Alright, so I guess still got time.
We will return for you.
I just hope I'm still around for you to return for.
When you're not wearing that gut-stuffed perfume, you're quite hard to sniff out.
He looks vaguely confused. I don't wear perfume.
I'm just busting your buttons. Both of them, he says.
Thomas looks even more confused.
Bloody hell, did you lose your sense of humor along with that arm?
Can't tell if you're referring to my... Well, never mind.
It's not important. We'll be back. Don't die. Got it?
I'll do my best. First, we have to find somewhere for me to not die at.
I know this nice cave.
Pass.
Barring that, a little more of a challenge.
Is this more of an old growth forest, or are the trees fairly new? / young?
The woods here are not very dense. I guess you might call it old forest, although it's not like the forest you saw coming up to Chester or Nottingham. The trees are fairly thin and not extremely leafy. There's still not a great deal of vegetation out here, but there are the occasional bushes, and there's more growing out here than there was deeper in the Pennines.
What about a peat bog?
Wrong part of England.
It was worth trying.
Can I try scope out someplace for him to hide?
I'm gonna say perception survival seems appropriate.
Yeah, I'll take perception survival or wit survival. Difficulty 7.
Would detail-oriented apply?
Yes. Are you still rolling? Oh, there it is. Okay. So, both of you kind of come to the same conclusion. There's very little out here. But you do come upon, in your walking and searching, there is an old fallen tree that comes down and falls into this kind of split in the earth where a small stream is developing. In time it might be a river, but right now it's barely anything at all. And it's hollowed out enough on the inside, starting to rot, that if nothing else, you could climb inside the inside of this. Of course, you'd be covered in all kinds of bugs and other grime, but you would technically be concealed.
This'll do. If I pull my heavy coat in behind me, it should keep the sun out.
Right. It should work. Stay safe then.
And he'll toss his coin purse to her. See about compensating the families of the fallen.
Of course.
I've
Though we
mourned.
have a greater question here. Do you want your farce to die here? We have a perfectly good explanation.
That will depend on whether or not you can bring vessels back. My farce may die along with me. Otherwise,
I'm sorry, bring what back? My internet went wonky there for a minute.
vessels, blood
Okay.
bags, humans, kind, tailors, shoemakers, blacksmiths, something salt of the earth. I don't know if they'll survive, though.
How can you afford to be so picky when you're in the middle of nowhere?
I don't much have a choice in the matter. That was decided by my sire.
Bleeding virgin's tits.
Not quite that specific, but I do thank you for the thought.
It wasn't an offer. Fine, we'll bring you back one of your goddamned workmen.
It's that, or I could feed from one of you, but I don't know that I'd fancy a blood oath at the moment to anyone. No offense.
I'd make you a little more damn personable.
Speaking of being picky, she looks over at Cormac. Do you need to find any wildlife before we set off?
I'm hungry, but not starving. I think I'll be fine.
Alright, I figured I'd ask.
I glutted myself on a poor wild horse before I came back to camp.
I did the same to a deer after we stopped.
Tastes like shite, right?
I admittedly never want to feed from an animal again. But beggars cannot be choosers.
That they can't. Tasted good at the time, despite its bitterness. Then let's be on our way.
Alright. So the two of you continue on riding.
As much as we can for the night before having to seek shelter.
Do you try to feed this horse any blood?
Does this horse still have any provisions on it that we can put the blood in? I don't think he's going to take it right from the vein.
Roll a 1d10. No. There's not really anything on it. I mean, there's a saddle, but whatever was on it, it's gone with whatever man was on it. You actually see some splatters of blood when you look over the saddle.
I can't think of a reasonable way to ghoul this beast, can you?
Not
you-
unless we forage and get things that it may want to eat, but I know nothing of what creatures like this feed on outside of grass.
Maybe you can hold it in place with those damn shadow things of yours, and I'll just force feed it.
If you truly want me to, but
A horse will never trust us again, damn it. Well, let's see if he likes it. Right from the tap, so to speak. And Cormac will draw his sword, or partly unsheath it anyway, and slice across his palm, willing the blood to flow there.
Alright, it's going to take some convincing to get this thing to trust you that much. I'll take a Charisma Animal Ken, difficulty 7. We're going to make it 8. It's hard enough getting this creature to trust you, given what you are. It seems to get uneasy when you bring up your vitae near it. It seems to still be having trouble trusting any of you. You think without the reins it would just leave.
Damn it! And he'll reabsorb the blood and close the wound.
you've been around horses, have you not? Do you not know what they tend to snack on outside of grass?
They'll eat all manner of wild plants, but not ones covered in blood, that I guarantee.
Well, we're in the wild. Should we not try to find some of those wild plants to treat with such things?
I suppose we'll have to. Despite the time it's going to take, we can't have this horse falling dead halfway there.
Alright, so you'll want to find some wild vegetation you might be able to get this thing to eat, and then get vitae in there somehow.
Yeah.
Well, it's either that or dominate the horse.
I don't think it works if it can't understand you.
Yeah, it's not going to understand. It's
Yeah,
more of
I know. That was a shot in the dark.
a little
I
animal or
don't speak the
something.
horse.
Okay. Take a perception survival, difficulty 7. I'm going to say only Cormac is going to make this roll because you don't know anything about horses, Elenid.
Alright.
The plants, the grasses you're looking for, Cormac, they're not growing out here. You're not finding them, at least.
Damn it. Nothing we can use here. We'll have to ride for the rest of the night and perhaps try again tomorrow.
Alright.
Are you ready then?
Yes, and for future reference, a description of those things that horses eat could be beneficial. That way I can at least assist in looking for it.
I'll tell you all about it on the way.
Right. The two of you continue riding along in the path. With Elenid's direction, it makes the traveling much easier. She recognizes the landmarks that she first identified, and you make good progress, much more progress in this night than scouting the path the first time. You think you've cleared about half the distance, even in less than a full night by the end of it, but you know in that last hour you'll have to find something. But as you get further westward, the woods are growing more dense, the vegetation more plentiful. It's less barren out here, There's a couple more brooks and streams you're finding. What are your plans for the day?
Oh, whittle some wood carvings, chop some firewood.
Cut open the horse and go inside of it.
This is not Star Wars.
I'll take perception survival from both of you, difficulty 7. Find suitable lodgings. One from Cormac and one from Elenid. You find a large tree with very big roots that seems to be growing over one of these brooks that you're finding, and because of the awkward growth it's had, the roots have created something of an enclosure, something of a ledge. And of course you'd be half soaked in water through the running brook, and there's a lot of this dirt and ground and the roots coming down, but you would definitely be under cover throughout the day. Fortunately, you don't have to breathe because you could easily drown in this. It's going to thoroughly soak you, but it will effectively work if you both snuggle up very close.
Cormac's okay with that. He has no shame.
Shelter is a lot better than burning into ash, so she can't have any objections.
Alright. So the two of you tuck away for the coming day. And Thomas, in his log, has his lodgings as well. And at that, we will end the evening and end the scene. And we're well due for a break, so we'll take a break here and come back in like 15 minutes. That's good.
Yeah, puppy needs a walk, so I'll be back.
Yep.
Yo.
Yo.
Good job surviving.
Hey, we're not out of the woods yet.
What up, Ching?
Yeah. At least you didn't die to any furries.
Are we all back?
Yerp. Maybe not Cormac.
She's the only one we haven't heard talk yet.
I hate people.
You hate people?
Yeah, I was out taking the dog for a walk, and some asshole who's pulling up to his house gets out of his car. He's like, "Oh, that's an ugly-ass dog you've got there."
Really? Really?
Yeah, he was a shithead. Looked like a gangbanger. Like,
Wow.
wow, thanks.
It's a weird
And we just
thing
kept
to
moving
say.
on. It is, and the dog bites. I wish you would have tried to touch him.
Well, then you'd have legal trouble.
I'll just tell him he attacked him.
Depends on what state you're in. If you're in... There are certain southern states that if you have signs up that warn that the dog bites, or if you actively warn them, you could be in the clear, but there needs to be visual record of that happening.
Yeah, stand your ground laws don't apply to dogs, sadly.
Oh well, someone needs to bite him anyway.
Yeah.
Like, who says that to a complete stranger, honestly?
That's weird. All right. Let's get back to it. So, without us getting too deep in the weeds, so to speak, the goal, as I understand it, is Cormac and Elenid return, or intend to return, straight to Chester, find, perhaps bribe or convince a few craftsmen to return with them, to return to Thomas and help him back up, and then return back to the return to the city.
Do we think it would work for him if we just got some of their blood in an urn or something? It seems like an unnecessary risk to drag a complete stranger into the wilderness.
Yeah, if you want to, kill some people and put them in urns, or put the blood in the urns. You're not going to find many willing participants to donate blood, that is.
Well, Elena can dominate them.
Yes, I can. Except they're going to start running the moment anything dangerous starts happening.
Well, one of us will draw them into the kiss while the other one opens up their wrist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Doing that in combination with getting a few jugs together and maybe a water skin you fill up. Being responsible, as I know you guys are, you can get this back to him and then return to the city. Overall, it takes about 3 nights, and all of you are back in. Inevitably, when you come across Isaac Lavelle, he inquires about what happened with all the men gone and Thomas missing an arm.
And the one word that Cormac can say is lupines.
He seems to understand that.
Oh, did we find any goodies to ghoul the horse with?
Yes. Yeah, you were eventually able to find some grass, and with Cormac's horse sense, you were able to get this horse ghouled. So you lost Bolt, but you gained this horse.
This horse isn't as good as Bolt. This horse is garbage on 4 legs, and he gives him back to Thomas. Ghouled and ornery.
You now have about a month of downtime before you think, well, before Robert finally arrives. What do you do during that time?
Heal.
Yeah, you can, over this time, you can clear your wounds. That's more than enough time to heal up. And you can effectively return to full blood over this time. You guys are seasoned vampires. I'm not going to make you roll for that over that much time.
Here's the greater question. Since these were not living people that were brought back to him, does the facade die?
Say that again?
Since these were not living people that were brought back to Thomas, does his little charade die along with it?
So the question I would have in that case would be, would I be able to fully heal up before getting back to town?
No.
No. Okay, well then, yeah. Judith Stone returning from the Pennines with part of an arm would obviously raise some questions.
Can we regain some willpower during this month down?
I will say yes, since you all survived what could arguably say is one of the most dangerous encounters a vampire can have in this world. Having survived that does build your confidence in yourself and restore some of that sense that you're strong enough to make it. And you can each regain a willpower point off that, regardless of your nature.
What if my nature is survivor?
Is it?
It is.
Is it really?
I mean, I'll show you the original sheet on a separate website that I haven't altered since I made it. But yeah, it is.
Oh yeah, it is. 2 for you.
Yay!
And what about the fact that I'm a competitor nature and I beat the odds? I'm really pushing it now.
Wow. You raced home and beat Thomas.
You got back first because he gave you his horse and hid in the blog.
I was ahead of Ellen the entire way because she's riding behind me. Anyway. 1 is good for now.
Yeah.
There's one thing to do over the month. When the axe gets in, it would be... Well, we have that meeting to have it analyzed.
That's true. Anything else before we go into that?
Yeah, Cormac's got nothing else planned.
Outside filling back up on blood.
That won't take much time at all.
Could I add a dot to ride and or survival?
Absolutely. Very relevant skills here.
What a gorgeous question.
I will say, just incidentally, since you're spending about a month here waiting on Robert to eventually arrive, you come into contact and learn of the full court of Chester, which is not very large. Besides the prince and Isaac, whom you've met, you also meet an ancilla by the name of Charles Wright, who seems to serve under Isaac in some capacity. And you also meet a apparently young Scottish girl who claims to be the sire of Anne Flint, who was... You would recognize a name, Thomas, as that was one of the people who died in this fire, this famous fire in London that wiped out Elysium, but for a few survivors. Besides them, there is, of course, Magister Kinwolf, who you've met, and you have not seen Rothschild since your last meeting. You suspect he is no longer here.
Well, he said he was heading for York, so...
Probably there. Or somewhere else. Who knows? At your meeting with the prince and Magister Tredian, once you have this axe, he takes it, and it does seem like he examines it for some time. Let me look over his note, just to remind myself of some of his stuff.
Thomas also had the chest brought up. He would have this examined as well, since it would probably have had a different perspective, assuming that any kind of impression was left on it at all.
He laments to tell you that there is nothing he can draw from either the axe or the chest. apparently the kind of sorcery he works is not useful for what you are interested in.
Interesting.
So he seems apologetic, but you don't really get anything out of him for that. Is there anything else you guys are doing during this downtime? Elenid?
I believe the hope with the meeting with the Magister was to be able to press him with questions and see if we couldn't get him to slip up and give away his intent with Barbaros,
Ah.
which might require a more in-depth scene than you might want to get into tonight.
That makes sense. I was hoping to get Robert in at the end of this, but we can definitely pull up the scene when you meet with the Magister.
We can, and then we can flash back to that in the next session if you'd rather.
We'll do that. So ultimately, the result as far as what he can find out, apparently nothing. But we can open that scene next session. And at the end of a month, really towards the end of summer, at last, a carriage arrives, and Robert, along with some man you've not met before, seems like some kind of ranger named Guy, is accompanying him. And the group of you converge, and we'll say that you've met at the inn that you've been staying. And so on this night of him returning, the group of you have a moment to speak after weeks and weeks of being apart. And Robert enters the room with the three of you there, upstairs in the inn. You have some privacy at least. And the scene is yours.
As for what Elenid's been doing, she would have been training her skills.
Robert enters with a weary look upon his face and goes to greet the rest of the Gauntlet.
This does not seem like it will be good news.
Out with it then. How'd Amelia fare?
She was unable to withstand the years and was killed.
Thomas's jaw goes hard. She what?
She is no longer with us. Prince Ragna has seen to that.
Cormac doesn't say anything, just narrows his eyes.
Elenid looks over at Thomas. Does he look like he's going to do anything rashly?
He looks like he's considering it. Yeah.
No, we haven't heard the full report of everything that has happened. Let's save whatever you may be planning for that. What else happened?
I wish there was more good news to report. Nothing was learned from Amelia, as we've expected.
Thomas scoffs.
I ran into a Jack Timbers, who seems to be part of this rebellious group. He was setting hamlets to the torch and slaughtering all who lived with him.
That piques Thomas's interest a bit. I thought he was a myth.
A myth, you say?
Story told to neonates in London.
And quite the notorious one he must be.
A 7-foot Saxon with a great axe can be quite notorious indeed.
Yes. He is still around and quite active. And I'm sure he has led an attack on the patrols sent out for him as well.
And how did you get away?
We parlayed. Whatever his allegiance, he seems to be at least willing to spare the Gauntlet.
I hope he didn't pass that on to Jean-Marc.
Can I roll perception empathy to read his expression?
You may. And if Robert is trying to conceal his expression, he may do manipulation subterfuge. Or he can wear it with his shame.
Yes, I think he will. Yeah, he won't hide this.
2 successes on perception empathy. What is expressed on Robert's face when pressed with the question of if Jean-Marc knows about this?
A slight hint of annoyance. Yes.
Fuck me, I was jesting.
All right. If he knows, then out with it.
Yes, he knows.
Thomas
He
looks-
has recalled all of his patrols and is no longer seeking to throw men at this problem, as well as send message to Prince Ambrose that Jack Timbers is active and working against the council. I would expect a more organized effort against this rebellious group.
Let me see if I have you straight. You carted an innocent off to be tortured into madness. And en route, you ran across an infamous Saxon elder who informed you that he'd spared you because he approves of the Gauntlet. Thomas looks a little confused on that point. And then you told your paranoid grandsire about it. Does that about sum it up?
Essentially.
Should have let
Because he
Lupin.
is my apologies.
Go ahead.
Because he seems so lenient on us, were any of us cast under suspicion?
Since you ask, I don't believe any are above his suspicion. He, of course, uses powers to discern what I spoke to him.
I think I'll go have that chat with the Lupines again now.
Lupines?
Oh, aye. Well, you were faffing about with your grandsire, throwing the rest of us into the cart. We were attacked by lupines while trying to identify the route being taken by whatever bands or troubling barbaros.
And Thomas here nearly got himself killed.
I lost my fucking arm.
Robert's face is showing great interest, perhaps even bordering awe at this retelling. Must say, you've been up to quite a bit. What is this issue Prince Barbaros is having?
Some old blood feud with Ragna. But At least you and I have something in common now. We've both gotten people who trusted us killed.
Yes.
At the very least, the Barbaros can be at ease with the forces being not Ragnas, but Lupines. I'm not. Yeah, that honestly seems worse.
That reminds me. I know I can't replace Bolt. But if you find a horse that's a suitable... to your mind, Cormac, let me know. And it'll be yours.
You better believe I'll do that. I love that gangly fucker.
I know. I'm still sorry about that.
Really, it's all of our faults. And the fucking lupines.
It's kind of you to say, but I know where the blame lies.
We'll talk about it later. For now, we have to deal with the aftermath of Robert's blabbermouthing.
Yes, with the information he says that his grandsire has, it's a wonder we haven't been replaced.
Won't be long now.
And I don't expect us to be able to live after we're replaced.
Sounds like a familiar tale.
I'm sure such a thing would not be necessary. And if we simply deliver...
Their
Or
underlings
reverse
have performed as they see unsatisfactory. As such, as is common with quite a few in high ranking, would you let someone of lesser ranking go free when they know secrets that others of lower ranking dare not know?
We have it on good authority that the Gauntlet was killed. Possibly as a result of conspirators within the Covenant itself.
Well, has anything new in the investigation discovered?
We did meet with Elenid's source. He implied that possibly Jean-Marc was a key player in the final demise of the Gauntlet.
And that is what he implies. How did he come to this conclusion?
Apparently Gaetan was meant to meet with someone someone of some substantial influence. That was why the Gauntlet had met at Gaetan's estate. Apparently he found something out that he wasn't meant to know.
Any thoughts on how we can uncover what this is?
Well, I had thought we might simply ask the man, but apparently he's already decided that we are conspiring against him.
Yes, and if you go back and ask, he'll simply think that we poisoned your mind. Or dominated you into submission, one of the two.
More than likely.
All right. Was there anything else you guys wanted to discuss tonight?
I feel like this question has been answered in that it wasn't ever addressed, but I'm going to ask it anyway. No one came looking for Long Tom at the inn. Happened to come from the Pennines.
No.
So basically the note was useless. Got it.
All right. So we'll end the scene here as a group of you are discussing what this means for going forward. So the scene fades, and the group of you deliberating. With that, we will end the session tonight after a very long session that mostly excluded Robert. And for that, sorry, Robert.
Yep.
Tarnation.
I had a feeling it was going to be pretty heavy on Cormac, Ellenid, and Thomas.
Oh, I had a feeling about that, did ya?
Yeah, I had a weird feeling.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of happens when there's werewolves tossed into the mix.
So now you're all together, though, so be able to balance things out a little bit better. That was a very decisive and climactic session, though, so 3 experience all around. Surviving, encountering the lupines of the Pennines, and surviving this attack. And meeting some people. And we will pick it up next week, and we will flash back to your scene meeting with Magister Tredian, so that you can better delve into what he may or may not know. So we'll do some entertaining role-playing tonight. We will start with Cormac.
Okay, so I thought Robert's scene was a special. Oh, wait. I'm being a
Man.
shithead. I'm sorry. No, I think I'm actually going to give it to oh my God, Thomas tonight. My brain is not working. I'm still a little sick. For our little showdown. And for surviving a werewolf attack with just a missing arm. That's like unheard of.
It grew back. I got better.
Good job. Thomas.
Cormac for very much playing up the Bruja temper.
For playing a poopy diaper baby.
Like I said, a Bruja.
I'm actually going to give Cormac another willpower point because he did really roleplay his clan and give in to his Bruja nature, and that in itself can be satisfying when you satisfy the urges of the beast. It can also strengthen you, and you definitely played up that flaw, so I'll give you a willpower back for that. Elenid.
I'm going to give it to Thomas for all the wrong reasons of his heavy insistence on going into that cave. Twice. While knowing what's out here.
I would like to point out that he went into the cave because Cormac insisted.
I'm pretty sure Cormac just wanted you to go with them so they didn't die.
Blaming Cormac.
And Robert.
Oof. I'm going to give it to Thomas for taking the aggro from the werewolf, getting hit, and then the epic rescue. Oh, man.
I'm sorry you couldn't be there, Robert. I promise you there will be more scenes of...
I don't know if,
More scenes and more werewolves.
Yeah, no more werewolves. Thanks.
No, just throw all the werewolves at Robert here since he missed out on them.
What were you going to say, Robert?
No. I think Robert is fine with not meeting werewolves. Jack Timbers was scary enough.
But they're so cuddly.
Jack Timbers is scary. There's lots of... I mean, you've also got that book still, so there's that.
But Jack Timbers is so cuddly.
There's lots of scary things in this world, so you'll meet more of them. I'm sure of that. So, great game. I'm glad we got everyone back together and got some resolution on the Pennines. Thought that was fun. And we will pick it up next week. Sound good?
Sweet.
Word.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, good game. Have a good night, guys.
Bye.
Good night.